to safety.
At one point, we had 10 people on here pulling them out.
Western wildfires, yes, they're still burning out west.
I cannot stress enough the literal uphill battle they're facing.
And Southern California is rattled by a late-night earthquake.
It felt like I was going to fall off my bike, actually.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
And good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. Tropical Storm Debby is once again over open waters, allowing it to gain even more moisture from the Atlantic Ocean. But this time tomorrow, Debby is expected to make landfall for a second time, bringing more rain to the already soaked Carolinas. Right now, Debby has maximum sustained winds of 45 miles per hour. But this storm isn't about the wind. It's about the rain and also the flooding. It could produce another foot of rain in the next 3 days as well. At least 6 people have died, now blamed on the storm. Communities are flooded in Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. Most people who lost power during the height of the storm appear to have it back on now, but things could change very quickly when Debby makes landfall once again. Florida meteorologist Lauren Oleski is tracking Debby for us this morning.
Continuing to monitor Tropical Storm Debby, heavy rain is continuing to move onshore across the Carolinas. Debby is a tropical storm with winds of 45 miles per hour, and it's nearly stalled off the coast of South Carolina. It's not going to be moving back on shore there until early tomorrow because of that flooding threat will continue. It weakens back to a depression by Friday and then continues to move off towards the northeast as a remnant low. Tropical storm warnings remain in effect right now for the offshore waters of Georgia, even northern Florida there. Of course, south end parts of North Carolina, the coastal part of South Carolina under a tropical storm warning. Tropical storm watch is in effect for some of the offshore waters of North Carolina. Flooding continues to be the biggest concern with this storm. Nearly a foot of rain has already fallen across parts of the coastline. A high risk for more flash flooding. That is more of that is expected throughout the day today and into tomorrow. An additional 10 inches of rain could still fall.
And we now want to take a closer look at the damage Debby has already created. That includes here on Edisto Beach, South Carolina, where the National Weather Service confirms a tornado touched down yesterday. There are no reports of injuries at this point, but as you can see right here, there is significant damage. We'll take you there in a minute, but first we want to start with Stephanie Bell, who is in a flooded community this morning.
So we're definitely seeing a lot of flooding, right? So this is at French Quarter Creek. Yesterday it hit the major flood stage, and you can see why this water just keeps going back. So there are homes actually back here. The water goes pretty much right about my waist if I were to keep going, but this road completely impassable. We are just learning a few minutes ago actually that, yesterday people were able to get some boats and to get out of here. So we know that all of those people in those homes were able to evacuate safely. We were speaking with some neighbors too, and they are telling us that this is not the first time that they've seen flooding like this out here with the creek. But the creek right over there, we just keep seeing it rush down. A lot of water, a lot of flooding. We're seeing flooding on the streets nearby, but this is the most significant damage that we're seeing out here caused by the storm.
We're out here on Edisto Island, and we're really starting to see where the damage hit. One of these areas is right off of a road, Palmetto in Edisto. You can see what the residents here are saying was a tornado that ran through this area. You can see these trees just snap like popsicle sticks. Now, we're also seeing some damage on the beaches, of course, and that's also where this storm was coming in. We saw where the siding was coming down, roofs had been ripped apart, and he said now he was looking at trying to get power back to the beach as soon as possible. So boats have sunk, we've got docks ripped apart, we've got roofs off of buildings. There's gonna be a lot of work for them to assess the damage and then start trying to bring it back together. Reporting from Edisto, I'm Ann Emerson.
The Arby's is it's probably the worst I've seen, and those trucks over there getting thrown like that, that's a lot of strength.
This is security camera video from True Auto. Wind strong enough to knock a pickup truck upside down.
We've lived down here for years.
And just across the parking lot,
Never seen this before. Isn't it a mess?
total devastation.
It looked like somebody set a bomb off in there.
Just yesterday, this Arby's was serving up roast beef and crinkle fries. Tuesday, tables, booths, chairs, insulation, and blown-out windows littering the fast food parking lot.
Everybody's riding through here and posting on Snapchat.
Mayor Tom Hamilton says about a half to 3/4 of a mile stretch of his town was hit hard. By what exactly, the National Weather Service will determine in the near future.
Well, hundreds of people have been rescued over the past few days from floodwater across the South. More than 200 of them were in Manatee County near Sarasota, Florida. This video from the county government shows first responders helping a woman, you can see it here, out of her car after it became stranded in high water. But it wasn't just cars that were flooded. Plenty of people had to be rescued as well from their homes after the water rose just simply too high. Sophia Vitello caught up with a man who is using his boat to help people in need.
We're here for them.
Richard St. Louis is the captain of this boat. And he spent the last 2 days searching.
At one point, we had 10 people on here pulling them out.
While the storm was still above us, he says conditions were tough.
Real tough current, going door to door, knocking. Some people answering doors, some not.
But his face was an answered prayer to these residents.
A few of them gave us hugs. No, they're not happy that they were flooded, but they're happy that somebody was here quick enough to rescue.
And as we know, Debbie's wrath is far from over. People in North Carolina are now bracing for her arrival. People living along the coast say their biggest concern is flash flooding. They all remember Hurricane Florence 6 years ago, a slow-moving Category 1 hurricane that brought over 30 inches of rain to some places in eastern Carolina. Rebecca McGann caught up with people preparing for the worst, but of course still hoping for the best.
Some areas in New Bern are notorious for flooding during a normal storm. That's something spokeswoman for the city, Colleen Roberts, says many residents recognize.
We're a 300-year-old city. There is very old infrastructure beneath what we're standing on right now. So some of that becomes problematic, especially during significant rainfall events and certainly during tropical weather.
The city of New Bern delivered some sand Tuesday morning to Henderson Park and off of Pine Tree Drive for residents to fill sandbags on a first-come, first-served basis. Nick Fortier is a captain with New Bern Fire and Rescue and was out prepping sandbags with his family before he got ready for a long week at work.
During the normal rain, we'll pick up a couple inches. That's, tends to sit in front of the garage, but just afraid that with the amount of rain they're calling for that we'll get a few more than a couple inches.
This is a very busy week for tourism in the Carolinas. Hotels are packed with families enjoying time away before the school starts. So given everything that's happening, the weather conditions, this wouldn't exactly be a vacation of your dreams, right? Mike Owen caught up with folks trying to make the best of it.
Despite the stinging rain and looming tropical storm, Joseph Strobel's determined to enjoy his vacation.
Out here looking for shark steaks right now. It's probably the best opportunity to do that. The weather ain't going to stop me at this point. I paid the money to come here. I'm going to enjoy my time.
But shops along Ocean Boulevard tell me they've had a significant decrease in business today, while the majority were still open. One of the restaurants I went into told me I was the first person to walk through the doors all day, and they were considering closing early. But despite the decrease in customers, those who are still out are determined to have a good time. One kiddo visiting from Washington, D.C. says he loves playing mini golf in the rain.
It's really slick, so the ball is really fast.
And if you're looking for all the latest content on Debbie, be sure to check us out on YouTube. We have a ton of content there on Debbie, including videos from viewers in the area. Just look for the Tracking Debbie playlist, and then be sure to subscribe while you are there. You can also scan the QR code on the bottom left corner of your screen to find us on YouTube and all of the other social media platforms. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll learn more about coastal flooding and why it's becoming more common along the southern East Coast. And we'll head to California to find out why it's getting harder for firefighters to battle the massive park fire.
I'm meteorologist Ryan Munn with a look at the Northeast as we head through the day on Wednesday. We are going to see some rain during the morning hours on Wednesday in southern New England in particular. Could be some heavy rain at times. And then notice the sunshine will return as we head up towards the north. A little bit more in the way of clouds for the southern New England region over towards the mid-Atlantic where there could be some scattered showers as well. And as we get a look at the high temperatures for the daytime today, we're looking at highs running in the 70s for most, 80s for some.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. We'll still be seeing good chances of rain for your Wednesday, especially in the afternoon and evening. A stalled front will be hanging out, especially to the south of Pennsylvania, looking at scattered showers and thunderstorms. We will be a lot cooler, though, with that frontal passage. But moving into the end of the week, looks like Thursday into Friday, we'll be seeing the remnants of Debby bringing good chances for rain and the potential for flooding. We are much cooler again as we move through your Thursday and Friday.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Charlotte Carl. We have high temperatures today that are going to be very, very warm behind Debby. Mid 90s for Florida, upper 90s, and even into the triple digits for a majority of the southeast. Debby continuing to inundate South Carolina and southern North Carolina with copious amounts of rainfall through your Wednesday evening. Heading into your Thursday overnight hours, we'll continue to see showers primarily on the northern side of this storm. Continuous rain expected to top a feet or two.
The National Weather Desk.
Debby has been dumping over a foot of rain in some parts of the southeast, causing fresh water flooding. But some of these low-lying areas deal with flooding on days with no rain. Emily Gracie spoke with an oceanographer to find out what causes tidal flooding and the role it plays when forecasting flooding during a tropical cyclone.
In essence, it's decades worth of sea level rise that's really catching up. It's closing the gap between average high tide in our infrastructure such that there's a variety of reasons that's causing flooding in streets and in communities when it used to not be that way, whether it's changing in prevailing winds, a full moon tide, you name it, because there's water's getting close to the brim. Any disturbance is enough sufficiently to push water into streets, and we're calling that high tide flooding.
Okay, let's talk about Debby in particular. Can you tell me when you have elevated tides and then you throw in surge and a lot of rainfall, what tends to happen?
This has been a hurricane and it came ashore, and we have places like Cedar Key, Florida. Our tide gauges are measuring, observed water levels that are 6 feet above average high tide. That's major flooding. And our tide gauges are situated right at the coast in major harbors, areas that typically aren't really affected by localized rain. So it may rain a half foot and it's really not going to affect the tide gauge reading that much. But when you throw in already elevated sea levels due to sea level rise that, are onward occurring, we've had more than 6 inches on average across the United States in the last 20 years of sea level rise. So when you throw in that extra sea level rise, storm surge, and heavy rain, there's just nowhere for that water to go.
In your opinion, what's the answer? Do you move everything away from the coastline? Do you build a wall? Do you build new ways for water to move around? Or is there another option, or all of the above?
Well, it likely will be all of the above solution, and it's really going to be up to the locations. What is important to that location? The solutions are typically found and funded locally, so it really is falling on locations back. But one thing's for certain, it's an elevation issue. Lower elevations are just at greater risk, period.
And to hear more about high tide flooding from Dr. Sweet, check out this week's episode of our podcast, Off the Radar. You can find it anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Severe weather is impacting other parts of the country as well. Major storms tore through western Michigan yesterday, causing extensive damage, with some residents calling it the worst they have ever seen. Tiana Barnes has that story.
It was scary, definitely scary.
Amanda Partial, the manager of Team Clerk Warehouse, was in a morning meeting when the tornado sirens went off.
I had everybody come over to Team and get in the bathroom.
She and her team sheltered in place. Devastation. This warehouse holding automobile parts, missing parts of its roof, which could be found tangled up in a tree across the street.
And we were hiding in the bathroom, crunched down, and then all of a sudden we heard a big, humongous boom, and the dock door flew at us, and the roof came down, water through the ceilings.
More damage about 10 miles north in Marcellus.
I was like, that can't be good.
Yeah. Homeowner John McNeil thought he was in for a typical morning with his dogs.
You know, I thought maybe it was just a storm.
Until just a storm turned into...
Is absolutely wrecked.
His truck totaled, his boat...
The paddle boat was in the water, if that tells you anything.
McNeil says that while the damage is unlike storms he's seen before...
I'm 50 and I've seen a lot of storms.
He's grateful that all damages are material and not physical.
And take a look at this tornado from Buffalo, New York. The surprise tornado spun up suddenly on Monday with winds of nearly 90 miles per hour. You can see it right here. Rips the roof off of one building. You can see it blowing away. Several buildings were damaged and trees littered the ground, forcing the closure of several residential streets. Luckily here, no injuries were reported. In California, though, the park fire has continued its advance through Lassa National Park. The fire has burned over 4,000 acres and containment remains at just 34%. Max Tedford joins fire teams on the front lines to see what they are facing.
As the fire has moved more into the mountains that make up the border of Tehama and Plumas counties, fire teams have been facing a harder fight.
So we're up on the ridge. As you can see, the fire activity behind me. As of this morning, the fire activity has already increased. It's already threatening our contingency lines.
Edwin Zuniga, PIO for CAL FIRE, says they performed burn operations to try and contain the fire in the rugged terrain. However, as he took me out to the fire lines, it was clear to see teams are facing a tough battle.
Off the fire line, it's just steep. It's just almost cliff size, just valleys and chimneys that we're seeing. So our crews are just staying on the ridges right now. We have dozers punching in line, widening contingency lines.
However, the uphill battle is just one difficulty. Fire teams are also facing hard limits to the water they can move up there, slowed down by roads that are barely able to fit engines and dozers and kick up enough dust to lower visibility to just feet if multiple vehicles are driving on them.
It obviously makes the attack a little bit more difficult. So it's we're thankful for the dozers that are here punching in the line right now, making our lives a little bit easier for the ground troops. But it's a combined effort by everyone right now.
And it's not just fire in California. An earthquake struck in Southern California earlier this week. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, it had a 5.2 magnitude. The earthquake's epicenter hit near the city of Lamont, about 100 miles from Los Angeles. Take a look at how the camera, you can see it back there, shaking at the Santa Monica Pier. There it is. Despite the tremor, some residents were not even aware what was happening at the time.
I was driving, it was just shaking. It felt like I was going to fall off my bike, actually.
Have you been through an earthquake before?
Not on my bike, but yeah, I have.
Okay. And was it a little startling, or what'd you think?
It just felt weird. I felt like I said, I felt like I was going to fall off.
Did you immediately know what was happening?
No, I did not. I didn't know. Yeah, I thought it was something wrong with my bike.
According to the LA Fire Department, no significant damage or injuries to report, and the Los Angeles Fire Department is currently in earthquake mode to monitor any future impact. We have been talking a lot about severe weather today, obviously. Severe weather can often lead to power outages. So how would you know if the food in your freezer is still safe once that power actually comes back on? Meteorologist Les Stales shares something you can do to help answer that question.
Before the power goes out, take a quarter and freeze it in a cup of water. Now, if you pull it out and the quarter is still at the top of that water, or the ice that's in there, it's okay. Hasn't been out all that long. Food is still good. If it sinks down a little bit more into there, the food may not be good, especially if it's all the way down at the bottom. If it's just kind of in the center there, it may be kind of iffy, means that the power wasn't out an excessively long amount of time, so the food hasn't spoiled like if it's all the way down at the bottom. But it may be a little iffy as to whether you want to reuse that food or just go ahead and throw it out. So remember, before the power goes out, freeze a quarter in a cup of water to tell you how good the food might be when the power comes back on.
And time now for a short break, but first let's soar over the desert Southwest.
Well, a very good Wednesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael taking a look at your weather story across the Midwest here. A little cooler to the north, 69 there in Bismarck today and 70s across the far northern part of the plains, but still hot to the south there. Wichita's getting up to 95 today. As we move ahead into your Thursday, we got some light rain kind of working its way across the plains and the upper Great Lakes, and that rain from Debby should stay to the east for us on Friday. Meanwhile, the Midwest is dealing with a lot of sunshine.
Well, good Wednesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Chris Suchan. Look at our forecast today across the region, starting off with a warm reading, 70s and even some low 80s to get the day started. So we're looking at a very hot afternoon when you start that warm. Dallas about 102. We'll look for 102 into Austin, San Antonio, Abilene 106. Low 90s in Little Rock. And then we head into Thursday's forecast. And once again, really hard pressed to find rain. Maybe a spotty shower storm North Texas. Otherwise, very hot temperatures.
Well, hi there, everybody. Good Wednesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. The heat of summer continues, especially in the desert Southwest, going for 110 today in Sin City. 98 in Salt Lake. Could see some late afternoon clearing because of the monsoonal moisture bubbling up there. Overall, the weather maker, this big ridge of high pressure still bearing down over the Four Corners region. Still some issues with wildfires and poor air quality in the PNW. And that's the scene from here.
The National Weather Desk.
There are many factors that can impact weather. One is known as a gust front. It's similar to a cold front, but there are some key differences here. Meteorologist Kit Alexander explains.
From scorching heat to cooling thunderstorms, a summer day can feature multiple transitions. Depending on the size and strength of storms, the air will cool as downdrafts with less humid air filters in. The cooler air is often temporary, but for a short period of time, storms can provide a break in the heat. But what is the process working behind the scenes? The cooler air after showers and storms is typically associated with something known as a gust front. Now, a gust front is a line of dangerously gusty winds created by certain weather conditions. When a downdraft from a raining thunderstorm hits the ground, it spreads out in all directions. The winds from a gust front can be strong and dangerous. Gust fronts can also strengthen existing storms or trigger new storms.
And looking for more great weather content, check us out on social media. We post content just like this from our team of meteorologists across the country. You can find us on all your favorite platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. And thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Wednesday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.